Just started the recording. Yeah, we're just waiting a few minutes here to get started. So go ahead and chillax and make sure you've got something to drink during the program. Give everyone a chance to come in from the waiting room. Give it another minute here. Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Hiller Hangar Talk. My name's Jeff Bass, and I'm going to be your host tonight. And our guest is Hayman, who will be presenting an intriguing talk on aviation museums of Europe. Before we get started, though, we just have a couple of announcements to make. We have muted everybody in the program just to make it easier for Hayman to do his talk, so there aren't background noises or things like that. I guess we'll try something a little bit different. If you do, in the middle of his talk, have a question about something you're seeing, go ahead and just unmute yourself and give us your question, and we'll try to answer it. Otherwise, we're going to kind of keep our questions and answers towards the end. Hayman's talk will be about 30 minutes, and then we'll have 15 minutes at the most there for Q&A at the end, and you'll be able to ask a question or put it up in the chat would be the other way to do it. But for now, everyone's just muted. You can unmute yourself if you need to, and be able to throw in a question or write it in the chat. So you look on the bottom of your Zoom window there. There's a bunch of controls down there. One of them says chat. So you can open up the chat window and use that to type in a question. All right, so can everyone see my screen share there, Hayman? Is that visible? Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. I have to work the waiting room at the same time I do my screen share, so I have to walk and chew gum at the same time. So you can always go to our website at www.hiller.org to get information about what's going on at the museum. The museum is open at the moment under our new shelter-in-place orders from the County of San Mateo. We are operating under state guidelines, which actually allow indoor museums, zoos, and aquariums to be open. And we are not in the bad boy list that went out today from Governor Gavin Newsom about all the counties that have to kind of reclose again a little bit. San Mateo County is not one of them, so we are open. So we are open in a way that is socially distanceable. A lot of our interactive exhibits are not running because our guidelines are that we're not supposed to have high-touch interactive exhibits running. But we have a lot of airplanes and things to look at and things to read about related to aviation lore and history. So our museum is open for that. You can go on our website to Hiller at Home, and you can explore all of those make and take activities that we've set up there so that you can download and do things with yourself and with your kids. And we have our virtual Invention Lab, which is running now every Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday at 10 a.m. in the morning. So that's a Zoom program. Just go to the page at Hiller at Home and go to the virtual invention page there. It's all obvious and linkable. And there's a Zoom link there. You just hit it and you go right into it. And I think we're making paper helicopters this weekend. So that's something that you can do. You can also come to the museum and be part of the Zoom action and be in the background while we're making and taking these interesting activities. But you can do it virtually too. So again, that's every Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, especially great if you've got kids and still looking for something to do. And we also have our Hiller Hangar Talks. We're kind of in a 2-week mode now. running, as the museum is now open, we're running Hangar Talks. We are filling up our schedule. We have them about every 2 weeks. Our next speaker is Brian DiGiorgio, who's an astronomy student at UC Santa Cruz, a grad student. But what's interesting about his story isn't just that he's got stuff to say about the sky and astronomy in general, but is the fact that he runs the UC Systems Ask an Astronomer web page. So he gets and fields all these interesting and bizarre sometimes questions about astronomy, and he's going to share some of the good, the bad, and the ugly of all of that, as well as his work in becoming an astronomer at UC Santa Cruz. So that is coming up in 2 weeks on Wednesday, July 15th, Ask an Astronomer with Brian DiGiorgio. And again, you can get all of this information on our website at www.hiller.org. Okay, and now we can roll a little bit forward here. We have a guest who has been a part of the Hiller Aviation Museum family for many years, helping us with a variety of projects and working with the general public, but he's also an expert photographer. After retiring from Lockheed Martin, Hayman Tam has written articles for General Aviation News, the International Society of Aviation Photography magazine, Pacific Flyer, In-Flight USA, and was the second place winner of the 2013 Aviation Week photo contest. So he's got some pretty awesome photographs of aviation themed subjects, aircraft, museums, and tonight he's going to share with us his explorations of the aviation museums of Europe. So let's welcome Hayman Tam.
All right, welcome everyone. Hope you'll find this enjoyable and not too boring. But yeah, being retired now certainly has given me extra time to do basically 3 things: do a lot more photography, do a lot more volunteering, and and traveling. So, and in this case, with this presentation, it kind of like combines all 3. And one of the things that I love to do when we travel, whether it's international or domestic, is to hunt down aviation museums. And I do thank my wife for her tolerance and putting. But yeah, so and I've been to some wonderful ones, especially in Europe. And tonight we'll go on a tour of 3 of them. So without further ado, let's go. So
we can see it.
Okay, great. So the first one is the Museo De the Air in Madrid, on the outskirts of Madrid. It's the oldest airport in Spain, as it actually was their very first military airfield. The museum was established in 1966. It's an extremely large arrangement of, they got 7 hangars and acres and acres of exterior display space with about 200 aircraft. So it's quite lovely, even though it's a little bit tricky to get to, not knowing language, and they don't have mass transit there, but it's well worth it. That's trying to advance it. Okay, here we go. So here is a Casa Azor. So you'll see quite a few Casa aircraft. CASA is a Spanish aircraft company that was their largest. Now it's part of Airbus, but they licensed, built, and developed quite a few of their own indigenous designs. This was an airliner that also became a transport. You'll see among all Spanish Air Force aircraft, they will have this black X on their tail, and that is a symbol from a 500-year-old flag that is very important to Spain. And since the 30s, they have put that black X on all the aircraft. So even modern ones, F-18 Super Hornet will have a black X on the rudder. So it's kind of an interesting little tidbit. Here's a Boeing Stratotanker. You know, besides developing their own aircraft, Spain is a huge consumer of or customer of aircraft from other nations, American and European. So this was for their in-flight refueling capabilities. This is a Canadair water bomber, and a lot of European countries treat forest wildfires pretty seriously, and a lot of countries, Spain and France especially, use water bombers to fight almost all of their fires. So this was interesting. I mean, one cool thing about visiting foreign museums is seeing aircraft that you will not see in the United States. And so here's an example. There's a Marine Saulnier MS-733. So it's a French basic trainer that was developed. The French Air Force is the only customer. I think there's some now in civil hands, but it's a little bit unique there. So here, this is an Eagle by a company called British Clem. And then when I was doing some research for this presentation, turns out the company is called British Clem because there's a German Clem, because the Clem is a German company that originally came up with this design, but it's a civilian sport aircraft. It was also used in air racing. And this is only one of 2 survivors, even though there are only 43 built, but this is dating from 1935. So here's a replica. This aircraft was designed for transatlantic flights, and Spain, Casa built one, and they were trying to travel from Spain to Mexico. It did make it as far as Cuba, but then on the Cuba to Mexico leg, aircraft disappeared at sea. So they did build a replica. So this, well, maybe not from this angle. So this is a Casa Bomber. So it was a licensed built version of the Heinkel 111 that the Germans used throughout, or at least throughout most of the first half of World War II. And Spain picked up on that German design and were building these, I think, during the Spanish Civil War. And for various reasons, Spain actually used it in their Air Force until 1973, long after nobody else had propeller-driven bombers. And over here you can see a little more subtle, but that X on the tail. So here's a Dornier for air sea rescue. Being a maritime nation, you'll see a couple of different air sea rescue aircraft. It was very much a capability that they cultivated and found and prioritized. So, and this one, I mean, they first started using these in 1923 and actually used them up until 1950. So that's always surprising, some of the longevity of some of these. So here's another Casa. This is a C-101, an indigenous design for a jet advanced trainer and light attack. It was first developed in 1980 and is still in service and is the aircraft for Spain's aerobatic team, their military team. And this one was kind of cool. Dornier, triple engine. It was, again, a sea air rescue aircraft in use until 1967. So this one was undergoing restoration when I was there. Quite majestic. Okay, here's a jet fighter or jet trainer. Actually, the first advanced trainer is the first Spanish jet aircraft by the other company, Hispano Aviation. And then you kind of see, this is the decor. So this is in one of the many multiple hangars they have. Back outside, here's a Mirage, missing a few parts, but once again, this is a French design. So as I said, they used aircraft from all over Europe. Here's a Swedish attack jet, Sabre. This was actually the first time I saw one, and then sure enough, I saw one in Paso Robles like the following year in a museum down there. But yeah, it's kind of rare to see Swedish aircraft. So here's a Sabre, fairly common, but then this one is in the colors of a Spanish aerobatic team, the Patrulla Ascua, which is it had a 4-ship formation plus 1 solo pilot. So that particular team flew from 1956 to 1965. A Starfighter. So once again, yeah, this is their outdoor display area, and once again, yeah, it just kind of highlights the variety of the aircraft they used, some of the different markings and color schemes. And this one, it's, yeah, Transavia Air Truck, a very odd-looking agricultural aircraft, but certainly instantly recognizable to anyone who's a fan of the Mad Max movies, where I think this appeared in one of them for sure. I don't know if it appeared in 2 of them or not. Yeah, very kind of bizarre looking airplane. Okay, still outside here, jet row. So they've got here Phantom sharing some ramp space with some Russian aircraft off to the left, or to the right rather. So one thing that was kind of neat about the museum is they have speakers embedded throughout the grounds, indoor and outdoor, and I can't remember if it was classical music. I think it started out classical. I don't know if they had some jazz later on, but it's just kind of cool that the ambiance while you're walking around outside. That's a little unique. This does not want to advance. All right. I can say this is a Dornier. This is a unique STOL aircraft. So it's kind of interesting how they decide to mount the engines. It's kept with a high wing for efficiency, but then they had these short, stubby pylons off to the side with the engines. Here's a Russian I-16. So these were used during the Spanish Civil War. And I believe, yeah, so this is actually the world's first cantilever wing monoplane with retractable gear, but it still had an open cockpit at the time. But here inside this particular hangar, yeah, they've got gliders hanging also. It's kind of a short ceiling place for displaying aircraft compared to some of the other true hangars. Here's a Booker Jungmeister advanced trainer. So here's another, this is a Super Sierra. So this was a ground attack aircraft that was of Spanish design. So World War II movie fans will certainly see this as a Junkers Ju-52, but Casa built these under license and built them for a long time. They and used them for a long time. So these are very kind of their equivalent of a DC-3. So that was Madrid. So now we're going to move on to Germany. So yeah, we were on a river cruise. There was a port of call in Speyer. So doing my homework ahead of time, I realized that I knew of the museum here, but I didn't know where it was. And then when I realized, oh, this is that museum I've heard of. So it's located on the ground of the former Falls aircraft company. A lot of World War I aircraft were produced there. The facility dates back, to 1913, but the museum opened in 91. There's actually a hotel on the grounds, restaurants. There is actually kind of a self-contained pseudo theme park with about 70 aircraft. So definitely worth checking out. So this was hanging over the entrance there in German there, Eingang. So this is a Nor Atlas. This is a French military transport. And, in fact, I'll jump back at it. So over here is an F-84 Thunderstreak, which was used by an Italian aerobatic team, national aerobatic team, that was formed solely for the purpose of performing over the opening ceremonies of the 1960 Olympics in Rome. But the folks liked it so much, I think they ended up performing one more season, but it was kind of a unique color. Oh. So now in this facility, you'll notice there are quite a few aircraft up on poles, and I think that was partly to help them manage their limited space. It is kind of a crowd in by development and such. So here, this is an airliner, a West German design airliner. It was kind of unique in that they put their engines on top of the wing. Definitely don't see that too much. Honda jets doing that now. And I guess engines being on top of the wing, it's better for fog avoidance, better noise for folks on the ground, and also allows them to build shorter landing gear, since this is also designed for rough field conditions, even though commercially it was kind of a failure. But here you can see it's up on poles, and then there's actually an elevated access to get up there to see it, which the museum does, as you'll see, does a very good job of providing access to the inside. So here's inside one of the main hall there. So L-29 Czech base jet trainer above there, a predecessor of the L-39 that we have at the museum, at the Hiller Museum. Here's a Ju-52 there, and then it's the museum is a technical museum, technical science museum. So besides aircraft, there are cars. There's a humongous collection of fire equipment, which is pretty cool, and motorcycles and cars. So it's a little something for everyone. So here's a French home-built a Sirocco. So they have an Alpha Jet. So Alpha Jet is a joint venture with French and Germany on building a advanced jet trainer. And what was kind of interesting about this one, it's in the colors of the Royal Air Force Red Arrows, but the Red Arrows have never used this aircraft. But I guess somebody thought it would look better that way. So it's hanging inverted in the hangar. over here, this is a Canadian-built Sabre in the colors of the Golden Hawks, which was the predecessor of the Snowbirds. It was a 7 aircraft team that operated back in 59 to 64. So it's kind of interesting to see one here. Here we have a Mirage, Dassault Mirage 3, first Western European aircraft capable of Mach 2. And despite the fact there's a Mirage 3, there's actually the first Mirage that entered operational service. Over here at this end, you kind of see some of the other equipment, the fire equipment and motorcycles and such. So here's the de Havilland Vampire fighter bomber. It was the second jet fighter used in the Royal Air Force. And 100 were licensed built in Switzerland. So this one is in Swiss colors. But then if I remember correctly, you know, the colors on this, I think this was a target tug, so it's painted this way for, you know, don't shoot at me, shoot at the thing I'm pulling behind me. F-15. We have a German starfighter over there and a Russian Su-22. Su-22 is kind of interesting. It was a variable sweep wing, but it's only the midpoint, the outer half of the wing pivoted. The inboard portion is stationary. And then one of their key attractions is a 747, Lufthansa 747, that is, as you can see, elevated. So not only can you take the stairs up to see it closer, you can also take the option to, I think you had to pay to slide down the tube to return to ground level. But as you'll see, there's something even cooler about that 747, and that'll be a few slides later. They have a Phantom in Blue Angel colors. You can kind of see the restaurant in the background. Being there kind of at the cusp of the, I can't remember what time of year it was. I think it was November when I was there. So yeah, not everything was opened up because it was starting to be pretty cold season. So they actually have 2 Phantoms there, which is kind of interesting. Once again, yeah, you kind of see some of the other facilities, and I think this is the part of the hotel that is, or maybe those buildings are the hotel. Yeah, that's the hotel in the background. So this is one of their other centerpieces of their collection, which is a bronze Russian space shuttle. What is unique about this particular one, aside from the fact that it survives, is powered by 4 jet engines. So this was an atmospheric test vehicle that the Russians used. So this vehicle could take off on its own power with the 4 jet engines, reach altitude, and then shut them off, and then do their glide test to simulate the reentry, landing profiles, and such. Completely dispensing with the way we did it with the Shuttle Enterprise, where we were detaching it off the back of the 747 in midair with all the inherent risks that brought on. But yeah, when the Russian space program, when their space shuttle program collapsed, a lot of vehicles went every which way, but somehow this museum was able to secure this one. So it's a really nice display.
Hey, Hayman, can I interrupt for just a second? Somebody did have a question from one of the pictures, a couple pictures ago. why would there be a Blue Angels liveried aircraft in a European museum? Did they have like a Blue Angels exhibit or something going on, or what was that all about?
No, um, I think, I mean, you know, certainly the Blue Angels had done some tours over there, but I think there's just a lot of general appreciation, or I guess especially with the Germans, with the presence of the Americans during the Cold War, of just liking a lot of stuff that was American. And you know, I think the Blue Angels in it. You know, there might have been some tie-in with an IMAX movie. I'm not sure on that sign. But yeah, and especially when the fact that the Blue Angels, I think, only used the Phantom for one or two seasons. It was just like, you know, way too, well, actually, I think about it, was like, yeah, one of the biggest and heaviest aircraft that the Blue Angels ever used. And it was definitely hard for them to do their stuff with it. But yeah, it was kind of an interesting, yeah, I certainly wasn't expecting to see it there. All right, here's a Mirage. This is a reconnaissance bird. Certainly in lots of commemorative markings on it, so not combat at all. Yeah, that was kind of cool. That was hanging over near the main entrance. So here is another JU-52. So this is in their main hall, so you can see the collection of classic vehicles. They have motorcycles on display on the upper level, lunar module in the back. So certainly a very, very cool collection of stuff. And in fact, the collection of this museum is so large that they split it into two museums. So they have a sister museum in another German city, and I can't remember where that one was. So here's yeah, some more of their outside displays. So this is a Antonov 22, first wide body transport in the world. And also the world's largest turboprop aircraft. And you guys kind of see its counter-rotating props too. And you know, a lot of the aircraft, you kind of see stairs everywhere. I mean, you know, even stairs for this helicopter. And lights are on inside the AN-22. So yes, folks are able to go in all these exhibits. However, you know, for us, I mean, you know, behind this tree line is the Rhine River, and our river cruise ship was somewhere back there. So I was losing light, and the museum was closing early because of winter hours. And as much as I would have loved to have gone inside all of these exhibits, I was doing a marathon, just trying to capture, photograph everything, especially since I was losing the light very quickly too. But it is, I would love to go back when there's more time. So over here, they actually have a Coast Guard vessel, and you can kind of see stairs up there with the gangway. So once again, yeah, I love how they provided access to everything. So here's kind of a little crowded group here. Where, so you have a Antonov transport over here. You see a MiG-23 in Luftwaffe colors. The Luftwaffe did inherit a bunch of MiG-23s from East Germany when the countries, two nations came together or were reunited. And for a time period, yeah, the Germans were operating Western and Soviet aircraft at the same time, then yeah, quickly phased out the Soviet aircraft. And then the back, this is a Dassault Mercure 100 airliner. It was basically a French equivalent of a 737. It was a commercial failure. They only built 12 of those. So back to the 747. So here's the inside. So when you walk up all the stairs to the 747, there's a couple more stairs, and then you enter into the luggage hold. So it was kind of interesting, just, you know, the fact that it was opened up this way to show folks. So you kind of see the cargo roller. So they did, you know, pull up a lot of the floor and panels to show the innards of a 747. And one of the cool things is you get to walk out on the wing. So they have a walkway. You can see the anti-slip and sufficient fencing that nobody's going to do anything truly stupid out there. But it was kind of cool to be able to do that and get some selfies. So that is it for Spire. Were there any questions on that one? Otherwise, we'll move on to Paris. So this is one of the oldest aviation museums in the world, dating back from 1919. Multiple buildings, multiple displays, over 150 aircraft. So they have a space hall. So this is a French touring aircraft from 1934. And supposedly this aircraft was the inspiration for Mooney for his design. You know, I guess configuration and stuff, so which I thought was an interesting connection there. So here is this aircraft was built for transatlantic attempt, a westward attempt. So they lost the aircraft and the crew during their attempt. So they did build another one, but then the second one they just used for other purposes and ended up here in the museum. So a French utility aircraft from 1932. So here they have a helicopter hall, and once again, some of the indigenous stuff. So this one is a coaxial rotor design, triple rotor. And this dated from 1949. They only built one, and they apparently flew, but just when they're starting their flight test program, the company went bankrupt, and that was the end of that. Here's an autogyro. It was an Avro training aircraft that was converted to an autogyro. 6 of these were built. One was sold to a fellow by the name of Harold Pitcairn, who went on to build these in the United States as Pitcairn autogyros. And no visit is complete without me hunting down a Hiller product. So this is hanging there in Paris, along with several others. So yeah, it is definitely a crowded exhibit hall. Kind of see this really wild one here with a multiple stacked rotor setup there. A Mirage F1. This was definitely cool. Everybody thinks Wonder Woman had the invisible airplane, but to see an invisible airplane here was kind of cool. The fact that they would go through the length, the troubles to make a plexiglass aircraft to show off all the internal systems as a marketing tool. Kudos to them doing that at the time. This is dating back from 1966. So this one, experimental aircraft that was built one-off, is a wood aircraft built to experiment with gust suppression technology. Tail surfaces, the stabilizer could change its dihedral in flight. Wingtips were able to pivot about on axis and compensate for various gust configurations. It's definitely kind of an A neat looking thing, 1954. Another French oddity, also 1954, experimental tailless aircraft, the smallest jet aircraft built. The jet engine only put out 330 pounds of thrust. So here was, yeah, a lot of wacky French designs. This was a Mach 2 interceptor, pilot seated inside this compartment within the nose intake for the jet. This is a coaxial turbojet and ramjet. Turbojet got up to takeoff and airborne and fast enough for the ramjet to kick in. Unfortunately, this aircraft never reached Mach 1 even. It was designed for Mach 2. It was just too much drag. There was no area ruling for the aerodynamicists out there. It was just a big old giant cylinder. And this was competing for a contract that ultimately Mirage won with the Mirage 3. Here's another loser in that same competition. This is dating 1955. This aircraft was also a dual propulsion ramjet, turbojet. Ramjet would kick in at 600 miles an hour. This aircraft did reach Mach 2. Mach 2.19 was the record that it set. But because of ramjet instability and then aerodynamic heating, this did not get the competition either. But yeah, definitely an odd configuration.
Now, I just want a question for, wait, go back. I just want a question for this.
For this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, wait, why is there a rainbow on this, like, underneath the cockpit? Like, why is there a rainbow on that?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if it has anything to do with the fact that it's named a griffin. I don't know if griffins are associated with rainbows, but
I don't know what that is. That's a good question. It's a weird piece of decoration there. I'm not sure.
Okay.
You picked out a good one though. Good eye.
Thanks.
So this was one of my favorite places in this museum, which I've been to twice. But yeah, this actually 3 times. So this is called Roundel Hall because certainly the floor is the French Roundel national insignia. But yeah, the fact that they presented all their the range of aircraft that the French Air Force has used, so you can kind of see at a glance, you know, how the aviation advances. So you've got a Thunder F-84 here, and you have a Dassault Mirage 2000 there. So it's kind of a neat presentation. So outside, they got us Air France 747 Dash 100. They also have mock-ups, full-size mock-ups of an Ariane 5 and a Ariane 1. These are, you know, European developed.
So these things are like rockets?
Yes, they are.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely kind of cool. They're very big and tall.
Did you go into the 747?
Yes, and I'll show you some of that later. Okay, here's another hall of World War II aircraft, a French P-47, American C-47 there. So here's a D-520. So there's a French designed fighter comparable to an Me-109. This aircraft type was a little bit unique in that it fought on both sides of the war, since it was operated by the Free French Air Force against the Germans, but the Vichy French also operated this aircraft on the German side, fighting against the Allies. But then after the war, they actually still used these aircraft in service up until 1953. So this is a Mirage 4. Definitely don't see many of these. This is was a strategic nuclear bomber for France. You can see the nuclear weapon slung under the body there.
Kind of it's kind of like is it like on the bottom? It's like the rockets which are like dangerous. Like it's actually like you see these I think those are rockets which just shoot, and then after that, if they aim at the aircraft, then they might just just damage the aircraft, right?
Well, maybe on other aircraft, but yeah, on this one, these were basically just full of fuel. This aircraft was basically designed for a one-way mission because France basically felt if we're going to use these, there won't be a France to return to. So the plan was one-way missions on these guys, but very fast. Actually, this one of the things that I didn't realize until I was researching has one of the thinnest wings in the world on any aircraft as far as percentage of cord.
Is that an in-flight refueling probe on the front?
Yes, it is. Yeah, right. Not too many countries that have refueling probes that are right on the top. Usually it's offset. Over there, they have two Concords, which is pretty cool. They have the very first Concorde to fly, which is a prototype. It was retired in '73, first flew in 1969. And then to bookend the exhibit, they have the very last Concorde, which also this particular aircraft set world records for flying around the world in both directions.
Why is there like a helicopter over here?
Well, it's called a compound helicopter. So this was a helicopter modified with wings and propulsion, tractor engines to, the wings certainly offset the load on the rotor. These are shaft-driven engines running off of the main power plant. So it did give it a...
Why is the engine, like the propellers, facing the forward way instead of like, there's an engine like somewhere over here?
Well, there's an engine right here on the top. But this helicopter is designed for speed, so it had the extra engines here, so it could go fast.
Okay.
Holder of the unofficial helicopter speed record.
Okay, hey Shashrik, we'll let Hayman finish up. Then keep your questions though, so we can answer them. So he's going to be wrapping up his talk soon. So let's give him a chance to do that, Shashrik, and then we'll get some more questions. And okay, go for it.
Okay, outside displayed in between buildings, here's a naval strike fighter. Here's a Super Mirage. This was definitely kind of cool to see this. Most Mirages are single engine. Here is a double engine Mirage. This was essentially their equivalent of an F-15, a heavy fighter, but it was never picked up in any, never won any contracts. It lost to the tornado, so it ended up here in the museum. There's a Douglas DC-8 that the French used for electronic intelligence gathering. All sorts of various bulges and stuff for their electronics packages and instruments. Array of Russian aircraft exhibited on the ramp. Here's another Soviet aircraft that was in Luftwaffe colors and was in service for a little bit. Here's a Jaguar. Jaguar always kind of thought was a cool looking, it was a strike aircraft. Always had kind of an athletic stance to me. So another shot of the Air France 747. And for visitors to the Hiller Museum, you know what our upstairs looks like. So here's a shot of their interior, which is kind of like back when the way things were back in the 70s of, it was a lounge, a originally, before the accountants figured, hey, we could put people up here and make them pay for it. But this was kind of a neat to see, figure folks, especially the Hiller folks, appreciate that. And then another view of the first class with the triangular shaped pedestal there in the center. So Jeff, we need to get one of those for ours.
I see they have a lot of plexiglass blocking the access to the compartment too.
Yeah, they made it. I mean, on the previous one, it was all plexiglass off, but I was able to get right up against the glass and get a halfway decent photo, whereas I wanted to still try to get as much wide angle, which is why I had to step back and deal with the glare. So with that, that was all I had. I mean, I had some bonus photos, but then I think, maybe we wanted to do some Q&A. Are there any other questions out there?
So Shasrik had some really good questions. Those are good. If you have any more, now's the time to chime in. But if you have other questions for Hayman, by all means, give us a shout out or put it in the chat room. I'm going to probably stop the screen sharing for the time being so we can see Hayman more clearly. That's the thing too. I mean, the aviation museums in Europe, we always think of America being the inventors of the airplane, but one of the things that we forget is how much, especially the French, were involved in the development of aviation, because if the Wright brothers had not invented the airplane in 1903, there were several French inventors who are hot on the trail of inventing the airplane within another year or two. And then most of the early aviation advances came out of French designs, not out of American designs, because the Americans were busy suing each other and litigating while the French were building airplanes. So France is a great place to go to see state-of-the-art, cutting-edge kind of aviation technology on display. And I noticed in that one picture that, and I think Shastri was mentioning it too, that the Ariana 5 rocket was on display. Did they have a whole rocket exhibition there as well, or does Ariana have its own sort of museum?
No, well, those were, external. In the space hall, there were other there were smaller boosters and missiles on display. Yeah, the space hall was pretty extensive in its own right, and as much I would have.
My favorite is actually, my favorite is actually a fighter jet, and also what fighter jet my favorite is the F-22, which is so impressive, the F-22.
Everyone should have one of those. I agree.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why are some planes short and
Oh, you clipped off there. So why are some planes short? And I'm going to guess the other half of the question is, and some are longer. That might be the question.
short and tall?
Oh, okay. Short and tall. All right. Well, good luck with that one, Hayman.
Well, it just depends on what the job of the airplane is designed for. There's a saying, form follows function. So depending on what it's going to do, if it has to carry a lot of people, or if it has to carry a lot of things inside, or it has to go super fast, those type of things will determine ultimately what the airplane looks like. And sometimes they'll be short or they'll be long.
That's a good question. Kent asks, how do you remember all that info? Do you take pictures of all the signs, or how did you do the research? I mean, did you document as you go?
I do take pictures of the signs. I mean, thank goodness the digital film is cheap and inexpensive. So it does also make the visit that much shorter for my understanding spouse. So I can just, so instead of standing there reading it and taking notes, I can just take a photo of it and then move on to the next aircraft and then do any supplemental research later.
Just want to let you know, I have actually went to the Hiller Aviation Museum like 2 times.
Right. Well, thanks for letting us know that. Well, it looks like we're reaching the end of our talk. We had one last question, which we'll finish up with, which is from Teresa Kelly, and that is, do any European museums have an F-111? That you saw.
I don't think I have seen one.
Okay.
I think the only F-111 I've seen in a museum, period, that I've been to was in Hawaii.
Okay. Interesting. Well, thank you, Hayman, Tam. It's been a fascinating trip and a journey through the 3 aviation museums that you picked for us out of Europe. And there are many more that we could explore, I'm sure, especially out in Britain, you know, with the British, the Royal Air Force and so forth. And again, you can always go to our website at www.hiller.org to find out more information about the upcoming events and programs, including our Hangar Talk series, the next one being with Brian DeGiorgio in 2 weeks on July 15th, Ask an Astronomer. So we look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, stay safe, everybody. Come visit us at the Hiller Museum. We are open for you to come and look at our aircraft on display. Every day, we're open from 10 to 5, so we look forward to seeing you here, and we'll see you in 2 weeks at the next Hangar Talk. Let's give Hayman Tam a round of applause. Use your reaction button on the bottom of your screen to do that as well.
And thanks for the compliments, everyone. It was fun for me too.
Great, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody else in another 2 weeks for Hiller Hangar Talk. Thank you, everybody.
Yep.
All
Bye-bye.
right, bye. Stay safe.
Bye, aviators.
Thank you. Fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Hey, Roger Bass, how are you?
Good, Jeff. Thanks for including us all.
Yes, you're welcome. I was contemplating broadcasting tonight from the surface of the moon. That didn't work out. Hey, Bob, good to see you.